nice article in the Managing Madrid blog. Wonderful lads that do a great job there. And worth reading about that man there. Karim Benzema needs to rest, and the numbers reveal why.
Times ended up almost looking like a 6-3-1. Some very good writing about that on the Managing Madrid website. First-rate podcast as well. Of course, Fede Valverde was a huge part of the equation.
Hello and welcome to the Managing Madrid Podcast on a Sunday night. It took us a few hours to recover from this one. The game was super early today, and we normally like to record maximum like 1 hour after the final whistle. Today we couldn't, but also probably for the best we didn't record right after the final whistle after that one. Joining me tonight, rocking his Real Madrid jersey on the Zoom call. That's dedication. When you rock up with your jersey, Mehedi smiling even, just proud to be a Madridista no matter what. That's what it's all about. Just when like Pablo Maffeo and Antonio Rayo are kicking the living crap out of your players and the crowd is booing and Real Madrid put in a terrible performance and lose and fall 8 points adrift La Liga, you come to the podcast with your Real Madrid jersey and a smile. That's what Madridismo is all about. So welcome to the show, Mehedi. How you doing?
Hey, Kiyan, thank you so much. Yeah, that's what's all Madridismo is about. And also, I wanted to show off my 14 badge if any non-Madridistas are watching this whenever this goes up. So yeah, because we have to ride that for a while. I was listening to you and Lucas for I think the last mailbag, and you were talking about how Madridistas from the West Coast, they have to get up super early to make their coffee at 4:30 or something, and they might wonder that, wow, we woke up for this, and you were just right on cue, Kiyan. It was exactly the game that you thought it was going to be, probably even worse. And yeah, I woke up I'm in the Eastern time, and I woke up at 8 to watch this. And yeah, it was brutal. It was difficult to take. And the problem with these games, the frustration with these games is that we have seen this exact game so many times. You kind of know that, yeah, this is going to be a 1-0, I think, by the 60th, 70th minute. Because if it's a remontada, our bounce, the attitude of the players and everything is usually a bit different. In these kind of games, the moment Mallorca scored, I knew that we're not going to win this game. And immediately how our players reacted. Overall, a very bad day for Real Madrid fans in La Liga, at least. Barcelona brutally defeated Sevilla, 8 points ahead now. And no team in La Liga in the last 2 decades have won the league from where Real Madrid are right now after 19 or 20 games. If they're 8 points behind, no team has ever won La Liga from this position. So yeah, things are not looking great domestically, at least.
Yeah, the waking up early thing, it wasn't even a hard prediction. Without fail, this happens all the time. When you're playing at 10 o'clock at night in Spain every single weekend, and then all of a sudden you have to play at, a matinee or a 2 p.m., the team just comes out lethargic. They're not used to it. They're just not ready. They're not up for it. The energy just isn't the same. But that's not an excuse. It's just kind of what I expected, and that's how it went down. You told me off air that you're kind of bummed that every time you're invited to the podcast, it's a brutal game. It's a 0-0. There's no goals. You want to be invited to the podcast when there's 5-6 goals. I got news for you, bro. If we only invited you when we scored 5 goals, you'd be on once a decade. That's it. Mehedi, no one even would know your name. You'd appear once a decade.
Yeah.
But you know what? On some level, it's really disappointing. We can make all these excuses: the early kickoff, the hostile atmosphere, the heavy challenges, the crowd booing, Mallorca's defensive block, all this, poor me, poor Real Madrid. I think it's just got to be a lot better. There's no excuse for me coming at like when you look at this game and how late we were with our decision making and figuring this Mallorca low block out. It was far too late, and even then we didn't really figure it out. We just kind of stumbled into like, oh, let's cross into Mariano and Rodrygo and somehow get our best chances of the game from open play. I was really disappointed despite all of those, quote unquote excuses you could have. And also a little bit maybe disappointing that this is coming back on the back of two games that were actually pretty exciting. Two games where Real Madrid played a different style of football. They counter-pressed. They had waves of chances. They controlled possession in the final third. It looked good. There was a different energy to the team. It looked like maybe a turnaround. And I'm not ruling anything out one way or the other. Like you said, the math and history is just against Real Madrid to win the league. That's not being pessimistic. It's just reality. Reading the situation, Barcelona are looking really good. Their defense remains incredible. So much is said about their offense. Sevilla's XG today was 0.04. Barca's defense has been incredible this season. So there's the aspect of Barcelona not slowing down. And even if they do, I don't know if they'll slow down enough for Real Madrid to catch up, because that also has to assume Real Madrid are perfect, which I don't think they will be. The math is just against Real Madrid in La Liga. Now, maybe we can do our voodoo stuff in the Champions League and do something there. I don't know. Call me skeptical, but I guess I won't rule it out. I won't rule anything out with this team. But it is hard to make up the ground in La Liga now. And I guess I'm just curious. We can start here. When you look at the starting lineup, it looks fun, right? Yeah. All the young blood is in. The average age of the team today was 26 in the starting lineup. Usually it's 29. Asensio was the oldest player in attack. He's 27. The lineup was good. So where did you see the problems? Where do they lie?
I think it's our players. This Real Madrid players have this tendency of just switching off. Sometimes in games, it used to happen under Zidane a lot, especially like during the last stretch of his first stint. Like our team would just switch off after the 70th minute, and suddenly they'll concede a goal, and boom, the 3 points are gone. And that has happened like more frequently, I think, after that sometimes it's during like an entire game that the team is just not playing to their fullest level. It doesn't matter even if this game was at like 7 a.m. Spanish time. If this was a Champions League game, I can promise you that our team wouldn't turn up the way they turned up today. Nacho said something in the post-match conference that it was a very difficult game because like we had to play during the day. I don't really buy it, because they train every day during daytime, and also at this level, like at the level where Real Madrid belongs, the timing of the game just cannot be an excuse, and that too from the captain of the night. And also, so where it went wrong for me is, I think Real Madrid goes into these games, particularly against opponents like these, I think there is a lack of tactical preparation. Again, if this was PSG, if this was Liverpool, if this was Manchester City, the team would prepare better, at least on a tactical level. Because they
would prepare better in the last 30 minutes of the second leg. Before that, I don't think they would prepare well.
Yeah. They'll prepare better in the last 30 minutes of the second leg, and if that's in the Bernabeu. So, like, how many free kicks did Real Madrid get in this entire game? Not a single free kick was a convincing one, even from a cross or from a shot. So you're going to face a low block. You probably have to maximize your set piece situations. But like our players, they don't even know. We don't even have a permanent set piece taker at this point. Asensio is taking one. Sebas is taking one. So on a tactical level,
Rodrygo was taking corners today too.
Yeah. Rodrygo is taking corners. So on a tactical level, this team just doesn't take anything else as seriously as they probably would a Champions League game. Sometimes, not always, obviously. Sometimes on a games like this. And this is not just the players. Like this stems from even further behind. This stems from the team management, the coaching staff, the scouting, the preparation it was just not there. The bounce was just not there. So I think whatever Real Madrid lacked even before the game started. It was nothing in game, and we can like talk about the in-game stuffs as we like go go along with the spot.
Well, you mentioned the free kicks. To put it into perspective and just put the number on it, I'm sure everyone's seen it by now. Mallorca made 29 fouls today. How many free kicks did Real Madrid have? Almost one every 3 minutes in this game, which was a clear plan from Mallorca. Like, hey, let's just get in their head, just foul the crap out of them. Now, the thing is, not even necessarily against it. Whatever works, man. As long as you don't injure someone, if that's your plan, if it's just to tactically foul every 2 seconds, do it. 10 of those fouls were on Vinicius Jr. He was fouled 10 times. It's funny because when you look at Real Madrid's style of play and what they were trying to do, it actually was not dissimilar to the 2 previous games, Real Sociedad and Valencia. The difference really is that Mallorca just defended much better. I wrote about some of the staggering numbers of the Valencia and Real Sociedad games and how they were both above average for the season in terms of field tilt, in terms of their defensive numbers. Even their best defensive game of the season was against Valencia. You can chalk that up to a little bit of Valencia were in turmoil, they're at rock bottom, but also Real Madrid did a lot of good things. This game, 73% possession, 77% of the field tilt. They kept a really high line. They only allowed 3 passes per defensive action, which basically means that Mallorca did nothing with the ball. Every time they got it, they lost it immediately to Real Madrid. They also barely did anything offensively at all. The Muriqi chance / Nacho own goal was literally the only time they actually really threatened. They had a couple almost chances at the end when Real Madrid opened up, but Carvajal had one big intervention. Camavinga had another. So from a pure defensive perspective, this worked again. But the main difference here was that Mallorca were very, very organized. Anytime they weren't fouling, they just had clogged the middle channel. And then to make it worse, Real Madrid was predictable. I don't know what your assessment was.
Yep.
The ball would go to Vinicius, and everyone would kind of watch to see what he would do. If he can get past Pablo Maffeo, great, which he didn't today, then he would be met with another defender and then another. If he gets past all 4, there's still nothing he can do because there's no one in the box. And because like you see everybody's just kind of hanging back in central channels or behind him. That's why this was kind of a rare game where Mariano Diaz actually made sense. And the first chance from open play actually came through a header from him or a chance from him in the box. So talk about Real Madrid's offense and maybe how lost to look, Mehedi.
Yeah. So the point that you made about Vinicius Jr. like just getting bombarded with defender after defender. In that case, I'm just going to like go back a little further in terms of Real Madrid's starting lineup. The starting lineup was okay, but as long as Ancelotti saw that things are not working, they've already conceded. I think at halftime he should have brought on Cruz. And I say this why? Because you see, even Vinicius was like guarded by 4 players. Even if Rodrygo or like Camavinga would join him, Mallorca were giving nothing. They were still, clogging that area. Mallorca's defensive, left-hand side or Real Madrid's right-hand side was empty the entire time. Usually, if you have Kroos there, he is not only like the best passer in the world, he's also the best switcher in the world. He switches play like instantly just like that. So every time Tchouameni is on the ball, he's looking for someone, then he's turning back, passing it back to the left once again. He's giving it to Rudiger. Rudiger usually is a reliable switcher, but he was playing on the right-hand side of the defense anyway. So that's one in-game tweak I think Ancelotti should definitely have made to enhance Real Madrid's attack, was to bring on Cruz straight away after halftime. In that case, like Real Madrid didn't change their game plan, and so didn't Mallorca. They were still, holding their fort on the left, and Real Madrid were again creating absolutely nothing. And because Real Madrid were so slow to switch the ball over to the other flank, they couldn't create anything from the other flank as well. So going into these games, hoping that, okay, some inspirational performance will come through. Someone will find inspiration. Someone will transcend, like how Ceballos transcended against Villarreal in the Copa del Rey, that someone will do that. That just cannot be a tactical approach to tackle these games. That just, it's Real Madrid is too big of a club for this kind of approach in this kind of era where the margin between the tactical level of the lowest side in the league and the high side is the league is not as same as it used to be in like 2004 or 2005. Every team has some kind of blueprint that can nullify even the biggest teams, how Mallorca did today. So I think like just nothing went Real Madrid's way today. Everything went wrong.
Look, I mean, you mentioned the point about the margin of error being less this season and all that. I mean, it's not just Barca. Like we kind of talk about, oh, Barca's better, you know, they're a better rival, they were better than last year. That's true, but there's a lot of teams that are better. Like Real Sociedad is just like a really good team. They're actually hot on our heels now in third place. They're not that far back. I think maybe 5 points or something like that. They dropped points today, would have been much smaller had they not had a surprise upset against Valladolid at home. But it's a good league. There's a lot of strong teams. Now, there is an argument like, hey, look, you're Real Madrid. No matter who you put on the field, you should be taking care of business against Mallorca. This is unacceptable. The unpredictability, or rather, actually, the predictability. Sorry, it was a little bit disappointing to me. It just did not seem to add up to me logically that on top of everything, the whole Vinicius situation, every away stadium is the same. He's going against the right back. The right back is having the game of his life. Vinicius met with 3-4 different bodies. Benzema's absence today was also huge too, obviously, because I think Rodrygo actually could have come over to Vinicius and linked up with him a little bit better. Camavinga wasn't as efficient in the final third as he has been in previous games, although I thought Camavinga was actually one of the rare bright spots today. We can talk about it. Just logically doesn't make sense that can't be your best solution, is to give the ball to this guy over and over and over and over again. And he just got so much to do. This is not a good game plan. I'm sorry, it's not. On one hand, it's good in the sense that like so many complaints about Real Madrid in the past have been, we need more verticality, enough sideway passing. We've heard this, right? Enough sideway passing, drive the ball forward. So Vinicius has that element. He probably takes it to another level, and I think he needs to learn how to sometimes pull it back, recycle possession, let the game come to him. He is probably the extreme opposite of sideway passing. He is, let's just go, go, go at all times. And I think there are going to be times where he needs to learn when to decelerate and when to accelerate, and just get other teammates involved a little bit more. Because we always say, you know, oh, he has 3-4 players he has to beat. But we also need to talk about the fact that on some level, he is a construct. He constructs those situations of having to beat 3-4 players, where he could also wind it back a little bit, get others involved, and progress the ball up the field. There was very little penetration from central channels. And again, no target in the box, because if you wanted to get the ball into the box, and Mallorca had 3 central defenders today, and they had a very organized block. Their rotations were quick. You needed somebody in the box. What else stood out to you in the first half?
Nothing much. The only thing like that was bugging me throughout the first half was obviously the amount of free kicks that we got and we kind of wasted. Apart from that, if I talk about individual performances, wasn't really a game that Ceballos could do much about as well. Fede Valverde had a pretty quiet game. He's obviously like going through personal stuff, and I wholeheartedly support him even through this rough patch. I know like when he's going to come back, we know what like carnage he's going to cause when he's going to finally come back. And the situation that he's going through his personal life right now, that is so much more important than any sport. So like full support for him in that regard, and he can take as much time as he needs to come back to his best. Other than that, nothing awfully stood out to me in the first half. And the chance that Real Madrid, like the goal that Real Madrid conceded, again, probably now Nacho or Lunin, they couldn't have done anything about it anyway. Even probably Courtois would not have been done anything about that. But like Muriqi, I think he has scored a similar goal against us last season or probably this season.
It was this season.
The time is, it was this season. So he scored the same goal against us, almost similar goal. So you know that they have a fox in the box kind of a poacher who is very strong in the air. Why have Nacho cover him? Like, why not have Rudiger on him? Nacho is like half a foot shorter than the guy. Even at Nacho's full flight, he's never going to, just go over his shoulders. Unfortunate own goal. I can understand that. But then again, the decision of putting Nacho on Muriqi is because you didn't probably scout the opponent well enough that you should know that you have to put your best defender, you have to put your most physical defender against this guy. So yeah, again, another opportunity missed there. That's all I got from the first half, I guess.
Okay, so on the Muriqi point, this is a guy that we watched a lot with Mallorca last season because we were watching the Kubo games and stuff, and like Mallorca, again, they're not good offensively, right? But this is one of those guys who, if they're going to score a goal, it's probably him doing something with his head. He's a freak. He's really tall. He gets in on the end of crosses in a similar way that Mariano does. Like, he basically does these superhuman physical exertions to get to the ball, and he's really, really strong and he's tall. So I remember right before the last time we played against Mallorca in the Bernabeu, I said, like, if they're this is one thing you have to look out for is the Muriqi headers, and he scores. Today's goal, I feel like, so this is what happened essentially, because you said, why is Nacho marking him? What happened in that sequence is Rudiger's on the right, Nacho's on the left. Muriqi starts his run from the left side. He cuts near post, and he basically drags Nacho with him. What I think you could argue, there's two potential things that could have happened, but I think it's really difficult to switch on the fly like that if Rudiger can go and switch really quick. But I don't think Rudiger was really aware of what was happening behind him, and Nacho was covering him. So Nacho got dragged over, and there's no way that Nacho's going to get ahead of him. And I said, I think it's a really good goal by Muriqi. And, people were pointing out, it's not his goal. He didn't do anything. It went off Nacho. Fine. But no, the point still stands. He made a really intelligent run, and he got his head to it, and the rest is, deflected off Nacho and went in. It was a little bit unlucky for Nacho and Lunin. Lunin's not doing anything about that. But it is what it is. I mean, I'm not saying you would have won this game but I really think you could have maybe come away with a draw. It's a kind of a sad standard to have, but that's all that Mallorca really did from an attacking standpoint. It took a free goal for them to score. On the first half, there's just a couple other things I'll bring up really quickly. You mentioned Fede. Fede's passing was really, really poor in this game. Disappointing for him to have a little bit of a come down after playing really good against Real Sociedad. He surprisingly hit the bench against Valencia, right? I don't know if that affected him a little bit. Because based on merit, I thought maybe him, but for sure Rodrygo should have started that game. They both come into this game. I mean, like our high line held up well for the most part. So that's all I really got. Let's move to the second half. Before the subs, was there any noticeable shift in Real Madrid's play, did you find, or did you see something later after the subs?
No, I think still I think the team started the second half better than the first half. That's for sure. There was a slight improvement. In the first half, they were still contemplating whether to give it to Vinicius, whether to at certain stages. They were a bit reluctant to give it to Vinicius even at times, but in the second half, they're like, all right, we're not going to get anything out of this game without giving the ball to him. So let's just try doing that. So the team started doing that, yeah. So it generally started more livelier than how it was in the first half, but nothing substantial, nothing that you can I think point exactly towards that. Okay, this was a great chance. I don't exactly have the notes on how many free kicks we got again before the subs. I think we got at least a couple, and unfortunately none of those were. Yeah, before Modric came on, we did have a couple of more free kicks that Ceballos and Asensio were over, and one of them was, I think, really close to the box, and Asensio very weirdly he tried to like chip it as a cross. That was, I think, a really good opportunity for a direct hit. Yeah, that's all I got before the subs. My point being, Cruz should have been subbed in right at halftime anyway. Cruz or perhaps even Alaba. I think if there was one more calm head, one more senior head at that time when the team is just struggling for inspiration, just struggling for some balance, one of the senior guys would have helped. And who knows if was Cruz already there? No, I don't think so. We missed the penalty before the subs, right? Before any of the subs came on, because if Modric was there, he would have taken the penalty. So yeah. So yeah, I think if one of those guys were in, we probably don't even miss the penalty. Who knows? But I think if Cruz is there, Cruz takes it, or if Modric is there, Modric takes it. So yeah, that's all I got before the subs.
Yeah, the penalty miss was in the 59th minute, and Modric comes in minute 63. Cruz comes in minute 70. I think that's a valid point about the leadership aspect of it that might help channel the offense in a better way. Not having both Cruz and Modric it's funny because I think pairing them together on many levels is problematic, but pairing neither of them can also be problematic. I don't know if there's like a middle ground here where you can have one of them just to have their leadership and direction. And I think Cruz had a niggle, so I think he wasn't going to start this game regardless. Like he wasn't 100%, so they didn't want to put him from the start. I understand. Maybe Modric should have started this game, but I'm not going to get too into. I'm not going to criticize his lineup really, to be honest, at all, because we have a Club World Cup happening now, and there's like a million games, and far be it me to be the expert to know how to juggle these rotations. And I was actually happy with the starting lineup when I saw it on paper, so I'm not going to complain about that. I did want to mention something about the Asensio penalty. I know he missed. It probably would have been opportunistic to say it had he scored. So now I feel at least maybe the opposite of opportunistic, or at least maybe even just more daring to say that this is what I believe. I think he was the right choice for the penalty. He missed it, but I think he was the right choice. Matt and I talked about this after that penalty shootout we had in the Super Cup against Valencia, where all four of those penalties were amazing. It was Benzema, Cruz, Modric, Asensio. And Ancelotti revealed that's going to be the four. It's based on experience. Asensio was the most experienced attacker on the field. I think it was the right choice. So we can argue all we want about Asensio is this or that. He shouldn't have shot it. That's something he's theoretically supposed to be good at. You put it in his hands. I think it was the right decision, even though he missed it. Hindsight is easy. I get Ancelotti's point, because he said after the game that Rodrygo, we weren't sure because he had missed that penalty shootout in the World Cup. I don't know if you had any thoughts on that.
Yep, I don't necessarily disagree on the Asensio point, but I would put an alternative perspective on what Ancelotti said. A penalty miss is a penalty miss. I'm not going to discuss too much about that. It can even Cristiano Ronaldo has missed penalties. Sergio Ramos probably hasn't in his last couple of years. He scored almost all of them, but Ronaldo has, Benzema has, Asensio missed one. It's fine, but I have some disagreement regarding the Rodrygo point that Ancelotti said that he missed that penalty in the World Cup, so that might have affected him. So does that mean Rodrygo is never going to take another penalty for Real Madrid ever again? Real Madrid doesn't really play easy games. Does that mean that Rodrygo will only take a penalty if it's in the Copa del Rey first leg? Apart from that, every game Real Madrid plays is a big game. So if you are backing a young player as one of your set piece takers, you should keep backing him. It brings me to a very old point when like way back in 2006, Argentina, just before in the quarterfinals of the World Cup, Argentina's coach Jose Pekerman, he took off team's best player, Juan Roman Riquelme, because he had missed a penalty for Villarreal in La Liga or in the Champions League or something like that. So I can understand why you chose Asensio. He has a pretty sick left foot as well. He just scored a banger the other day. He was high on confidence. He scored against Valencia. But I'm not necessarily in agreement with the Rodrygo point, because Rodrygo is also a good penalty taker. Good penalty takers can sometimes miss penalties in big occasions like Rodrygo did. So I think Real Madrid, if that's the case, then Rodrygo shouldn't never take a penalty for Real Madrid ever again. And if that's not the case, they should back him in next games.
It's a fair point. I mean, at what point are you just put it aside? Because you have to. He's not going to not take a penalty again. But again, so what? Yeah, that's a good, really good point about. I mean, at some point he has to take it, and I think he has the mental ability to come through with this and be fine. But anyways, I just think in the context of this particular situation, I was, in hindsight, maybe I would have rather Rodrygo to take it or anyone else because Asensio missed. But in the moment, I think it was a valid decision. We should talk about Vinicius and everything surrounding him. That's clearly a huge talking point. How Vinicius has dealt with these challenges and how everyone has been treating him. Nacho said after the game that it feels like a lot of these fans don't even know what they're booing the kid about. Like they just feel like they have to do it because everyone's doing it. How does this eventually diffuse? Or does it just keep getting worse?
I see this just keep getting worse unless Real Madrid is on like an extraterrestrial level on the pitch, because these fans wouldn't boo Vinicius if Mallorca was 4-0 down at halftime. So I think the whole Vinicius thing, this has got nothing to do with football. It has got to do with other social issues like racism and everything attached to it. Why they're getting after this player, criticizing each and every move he makes, his celebrations and everything. And he got fouled 10 times today, right? His per 90 foul stats is 3 point something this season. So he got fouled more than 3 times how much he usually does per game in this same game. And as we see, like in so many outlets, that everything Vinicius does is somehow his fault. We have seen Sevilla sporting director Muriqi, who is a respected figure in Spanish football. I think he liked a tweet that said that if Gabriel Paulista receives a financial penalty for fouling Vinicius, as good citizens of Spain, we should all pay that fine. And Muriqi liked that tweet, and it was all over Twitter after the game against Valencia. So these things, it's now everyone's like joining that bandwagon that, okay, everyone's getting against Vinicius, let us join that as well. I don't see, on the pitch at least, I don't see it getting diffused or slowing down unless like Real Madrid starts banging goals against these smaller sides, or like any side that's doing this. If we're like 2-0 up, 3-0 up by halftime, away fans are not going to boo Vinicius. They're going to be busy with something else. But then again, you can't guarantee that against every opponent or any opponent really. it is no longer a football issue. I'm not sure as a club how much Real Madrid are interested or even Real Madrid can do. I mean, like everyone at Madrid loves Vinicius. We know that. Like Carlo Ancelotti the other day, he said like after Rayo said that Vinicius is not a role model for his kids. Carlo Ancelotti said that he's a role model for all four of Ancelotti's grandsons, which was pretty wholesome. So I think from the club, Vinicius has everyone's backing. Now even people are speaking publicly in his support as well. But the social issue attached to it, we somehow have to diffuse it with football. If we, can beat these teams like that, they're going to be concerned about football at that point on as well. But apart from that, whatever like I understand of the situation, I don't see it diffusing anytime soon. What about you?
Listen, the answer to this is often just winning, scoring goals. A lot of that in itself. Put it this way. I'd love for Vinicius to just do the talking on the field. You're not going to see the clownery from, Pablo Maffeo acting like an absolute clown if his team is losing today.
Yeah.
And so that's that. But there are real issues here. I mean, winning is not going to solve a doll hanging from a bridge. That's just a completely different thing, which stems from racism and pure hate that is not acceptable. Some of the stuff today was banter, but it was crossing the line, I think. The 30 fouls and 10 of them being on Vinicius, I think Carlo Ancelotti had a point to be frustrated with the ref. Like, dude, we need to protect these guys. And the fact that Vinicius makes one challenge and it's a yellow, whereas these guys are allowed 5, 6, 7, 8 before a yellow gets dished out. I will say, though, the yellow he took is, I think, part of what Vinicius needs to figure out how to solve. Because the yellow he took was really silly. It's off the ball. He clearly just goes out of his way to trip Maffeo in the box. And he gets the yellow for it. Now he misses the next game. So now Real Madrid are forced to finally play without him. That's probably the only way it was going to happen for him to rest. So on that level, that actually might be good. But that yellow that he took was needless, and it was a clear sign to me that they were in his head. And I think he needs to use everything that's happening now to level up from a mental standpoint, to look at this and be like, okay, what can I actually do differently? Because this is like you said, I don't think it's going to get better. If anything, it might get uglier. Like we thought maybe Gabriel comes in with that vicious challenge. He gets banned a couple games. Maybe other players will tone it down. That didn't happen today. It got worse, I would say. Like, we didn't have necessarily the Gabriel level challenge, but we had multiple throughout that were just nasty, and a lot of heated words exchanged. Carlo Ancelotti getting involved even. So I don't think it's going to get any better. But I think Vinicius himself needs to figure out how to do the talking on the field and not let people get in his head, because it's affecting his performance. It's affecting his decision making, and you could see that today he was just kind of still getting into it. Like, he was responding to what they were doing to him. He was responding to the fans. And I think it's affecting his performance. So he needs to, I think, level up from a mental standpoint and come out of this stronger, which I think he will. That's my prediction from all this. He's still really young. I think he's going to harness all this and learn eventually to figure out, and he's going to have to, if he's going to be a great player, he has to learn how to figure out how to turn this into momentum for his performance rather than let it hamper it and let it get in his head. That's the next step for him, is the mental aspect of this. Because right now he's losing the mental battle.
Yeah, he clearly is, and I feel bad for him because he's not really like this, he's still inexperienced. He's still a young guy. It must be difficult for him to control emotions at points like these as well. And sometimes, I don't know, he might just feel a bit lonely because he's having to do all the heavy lifting on that left flank. Real Madrid's tactical setup is set up in a way that the lack of structure in these games, particularly, they really hurt us in so many levels. One more additional point that I would just like to add on, like how to probably get past this. Well, this would probably not happen if Real Madrid's captain is Iker Casillas or Sergio Ramos right now, or Real Madrid have a big contingent in the Spanish national team. I say this because, especially like Spanish players, they have this reverence, respect towards the national team players, national team captain, vice captains. Real Madrid used to have the captain, vice captain, third captain. Everyone of the Spanish national team used to play for Real Madrid at one point in time. So right now, if Carvajal gets picked or like Asensio gets picked for the national team, it's like breaking news for Madrid media that like one of our players got picked. So I think that's also a point. Like we're not a big presence in the national teams, so Spanish players do not really probably revere Real Madrid or like have. And I'm in no way like trying to say that they should cut Real Madrid any slack or anything. Play as hard as you want against us, but that respect, I think that's also a bit gone, because Madrid is like a international team. Teams like players from all countries all over the world play here, but yeah, probably the Spanish national team point is something worth considering or putting some thought to.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point too. I want to say something else about this. Ancelotti said after the game, this is not all Vinicius' fault. I'd like him to look in the mirror also and say, I think it's a lot down to Carlo too. Because Ancelotti may not have control over some things, but he has control over how Real Madrid play. He can also get, like, so many of these games, Vinicius is caught on that left flank. Pull him out. Put him in the middle. Tell him to go switch flanks. Like this happened, he's the only one who just doesn't go and switch flanks that I've seen. Mbappe, Neymar, they switch flanks. Cristiano and Bale were switching flanks. You see it all the time. It keeps defenders guessing. If it's not working against Maffeo, go to the other side. Let Mallorca just be like, oh shit, that we didn't expect that. Go overload the right side a little bit. There are all kinds of wrinkles at your disposal that you can use that could at least shake it up a bit to decrease the predictability and the onus of one player. Get Rodrygo involved again. This was the right side was not. I think Carvajal came up at some point during this podcast. We spoke about him. Carvajal, another game where he was poor again, apart from some good last ditch defensive interventions at the end. He tried this nutmeg from in deep at the first half under pressure. That wasn't the first time he's done something like that. He did it against in the Super Cup too. Just get the ball out of there. Mallorca nearly had a great chance from that turnover. But he's also not doing anything offensively, which is staggering because he didn't have that much to do defensively either. So the right side again was a problem. We weren't getting anything. And it's not because we didn't have players on the right. We did, but we just focused again so much effort on the left side. And if you want to use Vinicius, fine, but let him at least go down the middle. Let him go down to the right side a little bit, shake things up, go against the left back a little bit. See if you can do some link up with Asensio and Rodrygo around Jaime Costa and get behind him. There are ways around this. So I think Ancelotti also has to accept some of this blame, because even though Vinicius is not to blame, sure, but so then list off all the things that are to blame. And I think he has himself to blame for some of this too. I want to talk about Camavinga. What was your assessment of his performance?
He was again good. All the Madrid-based Twitter pages like kind of jinxed him because they were posting the stats that it's been like 200 something minutes when Real Madrid haven't conceded a goal when Camavinga starts at left back, and I think immediately after posting that Madrid conceded. But I think he was good. He was a bit I would say redundant at times because he just didn't have anything to do or didn't have any space to exploit in front of him. He hardly made any overlaps, or I should rather say he was hardly ever allowed to make any overlaps. I think defensively it was a good game from him. He stuck around to the Mallorca attackers from the right. made some chasing tackles, some nice sliding tackles as well, the ones he usually does. So again, like once again a solid performance, but it's going to get lost in this loss. But yeah, I think he was probably the only player who wasn't disappointing in the starting 11 today.
Well, he also had the same issue that a lot of these attackers had, in that like Camavinga couldn't dribble past anyone in the final third either. He was having difficulty finding space. What he did do really well was, I mean, his challenges were incredible today. He had 4 really important interventions. The slide tackle he had in the first half in the box was so clean, and it was like his classic vintage Camavinga Cobra slide tackle. Those are breathtaking every time he does them. I don't think he was like a great, like him and Ceballos both had one of their poorer games in the last, in this last stretch, but he did some really good things defensively. Ceballos too, a weird one. None of it was really his fault, but his passing was a little poor. He tried to get vertical passes in the middle zones, but again, Mallorca were so tight that there wasn't much for him like to exploit, and he would get fouled like every time he touched the ball. Also, like he was another one who they tried to really stifle and make sure that he didn't get going. He still ended up with 4 key passes. I don't know where those came from, because again, Real Madrid's chances weren't that clear cut. One thing that I would have liked to have seen earlier, and again, this is not a genius tactical revelation, it's just something small that actually started to work a little bit. There was no presence in the box until Mariano came in. Yeah. So our best chance from open play, apart from open play, so not including the penalty, was 69th minute, cross to Mariano. And he does well to get on the end of it, but he can't redirect it into the net. You had Antonio Rudiger. Was it? I'm trying to figure out which one. That was at the Alaba cross, I think, or was it Cruz? I can't remember. No, Alaba had another cross to Mariano, and then Cruz had the cross to Rudiger at the 97th minute. Even that wasn't like amazing. It was like that one was 0.04 on the XG. But it's just something like you had to give Rayo and all 3 of those central defenders something to think about. They had nothing to think about until Rudiger and Militao were getting in the box to do something. So that needed to be done earlier, I think.
Yeah, that needs to be done earlier. And sometimes like football is simple. When you can get past this 8, 9, 10 bodies with vertical passes or like all ball movement, just put bodies in the box and cross. That has worked. That has won Real Madrid so many trophies, not even just games. So you have bodies like Tchouameni, you have bodies like Rudiger. Why not just send them over more often? And again, I'm going to bring the same point for the 3rd time in this podcast. Why not utilize your set pieces a bit better with those bodies in the box, which set pieces were available throughout the game, corners and free kicks. So that is a tactic Real Madrid did miss. Well, see, Kiyan, I love Ancelotti. Like, I love the guy. I love the manager. Like, through and through, Real Madrid legend. There is absolutely zero doubts about that. And he's going to be part of Real Madrid's folklore. It doesn't matter how this season ends or how his second stint with Real Madrid ends. But I cannot help but think that Ancelotti's second stint will end at Real Madrid because of this predictability, because our in-game management hasn't been up to the mark, especially in these games. You see, a draw against Sociedad doesn't hurt us, but losing points against Rayo and Mallorca, losing like all 6 points of them, these things do hurt them, and we lose these points because of our predictability. So I think this predictability is going to be Carlo's end, whether we like it or not, because if he doesn't change that, every team in Spain knows how Real Madrid will play. Every team will plan accordingly like that.
Yeah. You said something I wanted to touch on there. I can't remember what it was.
Set pieces, Tchouameni in the box.
Set pieces, Tchouameni in the box. I think it was something about set pieces, but I can't remember what it was now. Well, you mentioned Tchouameni, who might as well use that as the launching pad to talk about him. First start in a long time. What was your assessment of his performance?
think defensively he was good. In offense, I expected more of him. Defensively, he was actually putting some hard tackles and getting a few of these back to Mallorca players as well, which I liked. In these games, you kind of have to do that when they're beating up your players all around. And I think defensively, he was pretty good. But I think he was getting out of his blocks a bit slower. It's with the switches, with the passing, I think it was a bit lethargic. Especially the switches were much more lethargic than I would expect from Tchouameni. That hurt us a lot, especially in the first half, I would say. So I think defensively it was okay. Offensively, it was disappointing for me.
He had a couple passes that were nice, neat, one-touch football, but they I think a couple other times he kind of forced the pass and we lost possession. Defensively, yeah, he was good. Also had 4 aerial duels won. The physicality of what he brought to the table and just his general ball progression and his coverage there was pretty good. I was overall, I don't think he was our main problem today. This is what I wanted to mention.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned sometimes all it takes is, one vertical pass or one pass into the box or one cross to break a low block.
Mm.
That one pass thing over the top, that's what led to the penalty. It was a really perfect ball over the top of Mallorca's defensive line. Rodrygo tries to get it on the end of it. It falls to Vinicius. He wins the penalty. Those moments were too few and far between for us. I think we needed more things like that to happen, and we just didn't get enough. My candle's slowly burning out, Mehedi. Is there anything that you want to talk about that we missed?
Not about this game. Ancelotti did try to excite us about the Club World Cup. I'm going to be honest. I've watched my fair share of Club World Cups. As a Real Madrid fan, I've probably never been less excited about one as I am right now. Even during the Solari season, remember, I was really excited for that because Marcos Llorente was getting minutes and I really used to hype him up at that particular point in time. And that season was anything you can get your hands on is a bonus. So I was actually, very, very passionate about the Club World Cup under Solari. But right now, everything just looks so bleak. I would rather have our players rest in Madrid right now than to... I don't even know where the Club World Cup is right now. Is it in Saudi Arabia again?
Morocco.
Or Morocco? Morocco, yeah. Okay. So
not too far.
Yeah, not too far. So they're going to go and play a couple of games against possibly difficult teams, obviously, because their brand of football is not aligned with what Real Madrid faces day in, day out. If Flamengo, I think, is one of the other teams that can go to the final. So Real Madrid are playing Al Ahly, I guess. So I have never been so pessimistic, so indifferent to the Club World Cup probably during my time of fandom. But I'll still tune in. Let's see. Probably a break from La Liga brings our mojo back. That's probably the only hope that we can have right now. And the fixture is as brutal, as difficult, as chaotic as it can be after the Club World Cup. But yeah, for the time being, let's just stay with the Club World Cup. We'll cross the other bridge when we get there.
Yeah, look, I'll be really honest. I don't even remember anything from the Club World Cups. Barely, really barely. Sometimes there'll be these articles Club World Cup stats. Real Madrid has won it 5 times. This is or whatever we've won. I'm really? What? When was? I know it happened, but I can't remember anything from it. I have a vague memory of, I think it was Modric who scored a really nice volley in one of those games under the Solari era. What I remember
Ronaldo scored scored a hat-trick, I think, in the 2017 semi-final or something. He scored a hat-trick, I think.
I remember more the old... I think it was called something different. It was under
Intercontinental Cup.
Yeah.
It was
I remember Raul's goal against Vasco da Gama. I remember we beat Boca Juniors 3-2 in the final. The The Club World Cup usually gets interesting when you play the South American rival. If there's a final between South America and Europe, it's usually a fun game. But yeah, look, count me in the same camp. I'd rather us rest and get our heads straight. I suppose if there's any benefit that could come from it is you get a juice of morale from it. And you win it. And just lifting the trophy does something to your brain to rewire it for the rest of the season. That would be the hope, but I don't know. Mehedi, good chatting, man. I'm sorry that this was another occasion where Real Madrid took an L. Hopefully we'll have you on for some W's very soon. But thanks for tuning in. And for our listeners, Lucas and I will be back tomorrow on Monday for El Dia Después. And if you have any questions, you can submit them through Discord. I know there's already a couple in the Discord channel, so we'll take those and we'll talk about it tomorrow. Mehedi, thanks, buddy. It was good chatting. Take care. Thanks for listening, everyone. And before we send you along on your way and wrap it up here, we wanted to give a quick shout out to our patrons over on patreon.com/Managing Madrid. The ever-growing Real Madrid family that is being built there is incredible, and we're really thankful to be on this journey with you guys. So shout out to all of our patrons who get a ton of bonus content. If you want to get in on the action, go to patreon.com/Managing Madrid. And a specific shout out to these $10 plus patrons, because if you pledge $10 or more, not only do you get guaranteed responses to your questions, but you also get a specific shout out on the podcast. So shout out to these $10 patrons as follows: Brandon Alvarez, Willie Reed, Will Sousa, Way Pairing, Tobias Arroyo Botcher, Taleb Salhab, Tahmid Kalam, Sujai Wani, Sumanchu Singh, Sheikh Hatiri, Shamil, Shabazz Sharapov, Sergio Arispe, Santos Solorzano, Samuli Justin, Samer Z, Said Mahad, Sai Mohan, Sasi Kumar, Rodrygo Balmaceda, Rishi D, Phoenix, Peter Powell, Paulo Fierro, Patrick Odayafari, Nico Laxo, Oscar Barrera, Mowgli, MJ Diego, Marin Myrtle, Michael Zinberg, Nicholas Moeller, Matthew Atkins, Martin Ridman, Magnus Lext, Logan Stahl, Leon Stavronakis, Kunal Tilakar, Crystal Glass, Kevin Rivera, Jose Cruz, John Fernandez, Jason Fitz, Ian Marley, Graham Gerard, Gary Cohood, Frederick Rantakiro, Frederick Sundros, Faisal Hamdan, S.A. Davisito, Eloy Enriquez, Edward Sossman, Daniel Williams, Con P, Christian Toff, Christian Acosta, Charles Williams, Brendan Powers, Brandon Stevens, Ashik Bashar, Arnab Mukherjee, Arman Gashi, Armando L, Anirudh Singh, Ananya Kumar, Azaz Hussain, Adrian Rios, Adar Zalukovic, Adam Dorsey, Bella Chow, Varun, Ramtin Maghrur, Fabian Moreno, and Daniel Smith. You guys are legends. Thank you so much. Love you all, and Hala Mari.